Okay, so you asked about doing English paper piecing on the machine instead of doing it by hand. And so I've been playing around with it this morning. I ran over to Joann's this morning to get some batting for my latest quilt. And while I was there, I picked up a few things. One of the things I picked up are these card paper, English paper piecing hexagons. They're a Dritz product. I think I paid $5.07 for 50 of them. These are cardstock, like fairly thick. You can reuse them multiple times before they're worn out. The other thing I picked up, and I found that I don't really need it for this particular one, is I got this Fons & Porter hexagon ruler. It gives me multiple hexagon shape options. You can do half hexes on this as well, which might come in handy. For this particular project that I'm doing, I don't really need it. It's easy enough without this, but I may use this later for other things. I paid $12.41 for this. Now this was regular $21.99. The cards were regular $8.99. Of course, everything's always on sale at Joann's, so you know that's what it was. I have some 5-inch squares that I had bought at some point or another. I dug those out of stash. The other things I'm using today is a Schmidt's Microtex needles, an 80-12. This seems to work really well. I had started out with one of my embroidery needles, and it was a little too thick, I think, for this. So sharp Microtex is a good one. It's a nice thin needle. And then the other thing I'm using is Soline glue sticks. I use these already on my EPP, as well as these cardstocks. So I already had this on hand, but I use a lot of these because I do EPP, so I already had them. So I just want to show you. These are refills. You get the pin. It comes with 1 or 2 things. And the way this works, it's just a glue stick. And then when you run out, when you hit this line, when you hit this line here, and you run out, you just pop this off, put a new one in. Easy enough. Now, I'll get to the sewing part later, but I wanted to show you what I was doing here. So I've just taken, I've got a couple of them here, and I've just laid them together. And then I have this small ruler that I use a lot for my EPP anyway. And I'm giving myself a generous 1/2 inch on these, which is not really a big deal. I've got plenty of fabric on this particular thing, and I don't really, I'm not real strict with myself here. So it's time to change my blade. So I just trim it off. Now, a rotating mat would be really handy here. I have one in my EPP supplies. I didn't dig it out for this demonstration, but if you're standing at a cutting table, this is much easier. You can do like 3 sides before you turn it, but I'm sitting at my machine, and so I don't have as much flexibility without bumping the camera all around. And so I just trim down the sides. I'm giving myself a generous seam allowance. And then once I've got them cut down, I'll show you how you put the cardstocks in. Okay, so turn it wrong side up. I lay my cardstock on. Now, I always go in the same direction on every one, and then that way your seams always lay in the same direction. I just get it on there where it's about right. And then I just do a light line of glue. And then I force that all the way over and I get it to lay down. Okay. And then I turn it and I put a little line of glue and I force that all the way over. Now this is work that can be done sitting in front of the television at night, you know, or watching a movie, or, you know, whatever you're doing. This is nice, just prep busy work, right? But for this to be successful, you need your triangles to be good line on them. Now, there are other methods. I know people who do freezer paper. I've never done it. Probably not that difficult or that different, and we can certainly try that. I like the cardstock because it's reusable. They're not very expensive. Like I said, I got 50 for $6, and I'll reuse these cards over and over again. Now, once I've got my cards done, then I'm ready to take them to the sewing machine. And so I need to adjust my camera and my sewing machine and clear off some of this clutter up here. And then I will come back and show you how. But I have figured out what stitch to use to where I can sew them. Now, I've done 4 here. These are done. This one seam I did differently, and you can't see it on the camera, I'm sure, because I used pencil. But I wrote down what stitch I used. Oh, it's this one was the different one. I wrote what stitch I used, what the width and length of it was, what the number on my machine is. We would have to find a similar one. It's basically a zigzag, but it's very small. So the needle is just barely catching the material on each one. I didn't really like this first one that I did, and so I played around and I got a different one, and I like it a lot. Now, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's not very obtrusive. I'm just using a kind of a light off-white thread, and it's a cotton thread. Now, a lot of people I've seen do machine EPP will use a mono poly or monofilament, which is like a invisible thread. It's like sewing with fishing line. I have used it in the past. It's really a pain to work with, in my opinion. But I have used it. I did a whole quilt with it once, and swore I would never do it again because it was just a pain in the rump. Personally, I don't think this is bad. You really can't see it. It's very firmly held together. So personally, I think this would work just fine. I would do a whole quilt like this, and I probably will now that I've got this started. But I find it's a little fussy, and you really got to go slow. I'll show you. So let me clear this off, and then I'll start a new video, and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. Okay.